Isn't it poetic? The ones who thrive in shadows, who twist your reality and wear masks of virtue, they never think the prey will become the hunter. They laugh while spinning their webs, never suspecting that the same thread could strangle them. But here's the irony. They weren't just toying with you. They were taunting something far greater, something infinite. You weren't the weak link in their game. You were the divine reckoning they didn't see coming. Manipulators, they're like magicians, sleight of hand, smoke, and mirrors. They don't need a hammer when they can use whispers. They craft illusions so convincing, you start doubting the ground beneath your feet. The brilliance of their strategy is how they never confront. They corrode. Slowly, invisibly, they eat away at your sense of self. But here's their fatal flaw. They mistake compliance for defeat. Oh, you complied, didn't you? Smiling when you wanted to scream, nodding when your gut churned in protest. But that wasn't submission. It was strategy. While they played their little games, they didn't notice the storm gathering behind your eyes. They couldn't see that their cruelty wasn't breaking you, it was forging you. God doesn't send angels to fight battles against shadows. He sharpens blades, and you, my dear, have become sharper than they could ever imagine. Let's unravel their tricks for a moment. Manipulators don't just lie. They craft narratives. They weave stories where you're always the villain, always indebted, always wrong. They position themselves as the hero, the martyr, the savior, and they expect you to applaud their performance. And for a while you did, didn't you? You played along, letting them bask in their self-proclaimed brilliance. But even the most convincing stories fall apart when the truth begins to seep through the cracks. At first, it was a whisper, a faint voice in your mind saying, "This isn't right. This isn't me." That voice was quiet, almost drowned out by their accusations, their manipulation. But it grew louder, didn't it? Louder with every lie they told, every boundary they crossed. And then one day, it all clicked. Like a flash of lightning in a dark room, you saw them for what they were. Not powerful, not invincible, but desperate. Their control was an illusion, their strength a mirage. And in that moment, you realized something. They weren't winning because they were strong. They were winning because you hadn't started fighting back. But fighting back wasn't about revenge. No, that would have been too easy, too predictable. Manipulators thrive on chaos, on emotional reactions. Fighting them on their terms would only play into their hands. So you didn't fight fire with fire, you fought it with ice. God didn't arm you with rage or vengeance. He armed you with clarity. He gave you discernment, the ability to see through their lies, their schemes, their masks. And once you saw them for what they truly were, their power crumbled. Discernment is a weapon they can't counter because it doesn't just expose their lies, it renders them powerless. But discernment was only the beginning. God didn't stop there. He gave you resilience, the ability to withstand their games without breaking. Resilience isn't about being unshaken. It's about standing back up every time they try to knock you down. It's about refusing to let their poison seep into your soul. And oh, how they hated it. They hated the way their words no longer cut as deep, the way their manipulations no longer held sway. They hated the way you began to set boundaries, firm, unyielding boundaries that they couldn't cross. To a manipulator, boundaries are like prison bars, and you, my dear, became the warden of your own freedom. Here's what they didn't understand. Every wound they inflicted was a lesson. Every betrayal taught you where to build your walls. Every lie showed you how to guard your truth, and slowly, without them realizing it, you were transforming. You weren't their victim anymore. You were becoming their reckoning. The manipulators didn't just underestimate you. They underestimated the forces backing you. God doesn't equip the weak for mere survival. He arms them for victory. Every scar they left on you became a badge of wisdom. Every tear a testament to your strength. And now you carry an arsenal they can't comprehend. Oh, and let's not forget their favorite game, guilt. They tried to shackle you with it, didn't they? Made you feel responsible for their misery, their failures, their unhappiness. But guilt is a weapon that only works if you accept it. The moment you saw through their game, their weapon turned into a dead weight, dragging them down instead of you. And then came the most dangerous gift God gave you, your voice. Not the hesitant, trembling voice they silenced for so long, but the one forged in fire, tempered in truth. Your voice didn't need to shout or beg. It spoke with a quiet authority that shook their foundations. Truth is their kryptonite. It strips away their illusions, their narratives, their control. And when you began to wield it, they scrambled. They tried to counter with more lies, more guilt, more manipulation. But it was too late. The fortress had been built. And what about forgiveness? Ah, the final blow. But not the kind of forgiveness they were hoping for. Not the, let's go back to how things were kind. No, this was a clean break, a severing of ties. You didn't forgive them to release them. You forgave them to free yourself. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate act of defiance. It says, you don't control me anymore. Your chains are broken. Your power is gone. And as you walked away, leaving them to their own chaos, you felt something you hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But manipulators are persistent, aren't they? Like rats in a sinking ship, they'll claw and scrape, trying to find another way in. They'll test your boundaries, hoping for a crack. But you've already fortified your defenses, haven't you? You've learned their playbook, and you're not playing their game anymore. The battle isn't over, but you've already won the war, because now you see them for what they are, hollow, powerless, and afraid. They claw at the edges of your resolve, hoping, praying for a sliver of weakness. Manipulators are like gamblers who can't leave the table, chasing a win they'll never achieve. But the game has changed, hasn't it? The cards are no longer stacked in their favor, and the dealer, oh, the dealer, is no longer asleep. You've taken their every tactic, every twisted move, and dissected it. You know the rhythm of their lies, the melody of their manipulations, and now you conduct the symphony. Their power was never real. It was borrowed, stolen from your moments of doubt. But doubt is a shadow that vanishes when the light of truth shines, and your truth now burns brighter than they could have ever imagined. Oh, how they hate the silence. Silence to a manipulator is deafening, a vacuum they can't control. When you stopped engaging, stopped feeding their chaos, they panicked. They tried louder accusations, more elaborate traps, hoping to provoke a reaction. But nothing. Nothing but the icy stillness of a battlefield where their weapons no longer work. It's amusing, isn't it? Watching them flail, watching their confidence crumble under the weight of their own lies. You see, manipulators need an audience, and without one, they're nothing but bad actors in an empty theater. They might rage, they might sulk, but deep down, they know the truth. The strings they once pulled have snapped. But this isn't about revenge. No, revenge would mean you're still tethered to their game, still playing by their rules. This is about liberation. This is about reclaiming your power and wielding it not to destroy them, but to build yourself into something untouchable. God armed you, not with the weapons of this world, but with tools they can't fathom. Peace, strength, wisdom. These aren't just words. They're the armor that shields you from their arrows. They can hurl their insults, their schemes, their venom, but nothing penetrates a soul that's rooted in truth. But let's not forget their desperation. It's almost pitiable, really, the way they try to adapt, to reinvent their strategies. They'll try kindness now, a sickly sweet version of it. They'll offer apologies dipped in poison, promises wrapped in deceit. They'll whisper, "I've changed. I see things differently now." But you've heard that song before, haven't you? And you know how it ends. The strength God gave you isn't just to walk away. It's to stand firm, to hold the line. They may try to creep back in, to test your defenses, but every time they do, they'll find that the fortress is stronger, the walls higher, the gates impenetrable. Manipulators thrive on chaos, but you've chosen a path of order. They thrive on control, but you've chosen freedom. They thrive on your fear, but you've chosen faith. And faith, true, unyielding faith, is a force they can't comprehend, let alone conquer. You've become their worst nightmare, someone they can't manipulate, someone who sees through their facade and doesn't flinch. And oh, how it terrifies them. They'll tell themselves you've changed, that you've become cold, heartless. But you know the truth. You haven't become cold. You've become clear. You see, clarity is their undoing. When you see them for who they truly are, their power evaporates. They're no longer the puppeteer pulling the strings. They're the marionette, dancing to the rhythm of their own desperation. And as you rise, they fall. Their kingdom of lies collapses under the weight of your truth. Their games, once so intricate, now seem childish, transparent. You don't need to expose them to the world. They'll expose themselves. Their masks will slip, their lies will unravel, and the truth will stand in stark contrast. But here's the twist they never saw coming. You don't just survive, you thrive. You take the lessons they unwittingly taught you, the resilience, the discernment, the strength, and you turn them into tools for a life they can't touch. It's poetic, really, how their attempts to break you only built you stronger. Every manipulation, every betrayal, every word meant to wound. They weren't destroying you. They were tempering you, like steel in a fire. And now, you shine with a brilliance they can't dim, a strength they can't match. But let's not pretend it was easy. No, the path to this strength was paved with pain, with tears, with nights spent questioning everything. But God doesn't promise ease. He promises victory. And victory, my dear, is what you've achieved. You are armed with something they will never possess: grace. Grace to forgive without forgetting, to move forward without looking back. Grace isn't weakness, it's the ultimate show of power. It says, you no longer control me. Your actions, your words, your schemes, they hold no sway over me. And as you walk away from their chaos, you carry with you the ultimate weapon: peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from avoidance, but the unshakable peace that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. They'll watch you go, and they'll feel it. That gnawing, inescapable fear. Fear of their own irrelevance, their own powerlessness. Fear of the truth that you now carry like a torch, a truth they can't extinguish. And when they're left alone in the ruins of their own making, they'll finally understand. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting something far greater. You didn't just silence the manipulators. You became a force they'll never dare to challenge again. And now we stand here, at the edge of the world they built, a house of cards trembling in the wind. Oh, they thought they were invincible, didn't they? Masters of their craft. They believed their web of lies was so intricate, so impenetrable, that you'd be ensnared forever. But webs are fragile things, aren't they? One sharp blade, one unwavering hand, and the whole thing collapses into dust. What they never understood, what manipulators will never understand, is that their power is an illusion. They don't command respect. They don't inspire loyalty. All they have is fear, and fear is a fickle master. Once you stop trembling, once you stop reacting, they're left with nothing but their own hollow echoes. And here's the irony. The very tools they used to control you, your kindness, your empathy, your trust, have now become your weapons. Kindness, not as a weakness, but as a scalpel, cutting through their deceit. Empathy, not as a leash, but as a mirror, reflecting their true selves back at them. And trust? Trust has been reforged into something they can't touch, a trust in yourself, unshakable, immovable. Oh, how they'll squirm now, like cornered animals, lashing out in desperation. They'll throw every trick, every tactic, every ounce of venom they have left, but it won't work. You've seen through their facade. You've stared into the void they call a soul and found it wanting. They wanted you to be afraid. They wanted you to doubt yourself, to second-guess every thought, every decision. But now, the roles have reversed. You've become the fear they can't escape. Not because you seek revenge, no. Revenge is a trap, a game that keeps you tethered to them. You've become their fear because you're free. And freedom, true freedom, is the one thing they can never control. It's the one thing that renders them powerless. You've broken their cycle, shattered their illusion, and walked away with something they'll never possess: peace. But peace doesn't mean passivity. No, peace is a weapon in its own right. It's the calm in the storm, the unshakable resolve that no amount of manipulation can crack. When you're at peace, their chaos loses its grip. Their words, their actions, they bounce off you like arrows against armor. But let's not forget the final act. The manipulators always have one last trick, one last desperate attempt to reclaim their power. They'll plead, they'll promise, they'll paint themselves as victims, as misunderstood souls, just trying to survive. And for a moment, a fleeting, fragile moment, you might feel the pull of your old self, the urge to save them, to fix them, to believe them. But then you'll remember. You'll remember the lies, the pain, the nights spent questioning your worth. You'll remember the way they twisted your kindness, used your trust as a weapon, and left you doubting the very core of who you are. And in that moment, the spell will break. Because you've seen the truth, haven't you? They don't want forgiveness. They don't want reconciliation. They want control. And control is something you'll never give them again. You are the weapon now. Not the kind that strikes out in anger, but the kind that stands firm in the face of chaos. The kind that doesn't need to fight, because the battle was won the moment you chose yourself over their lies. And as you walk away, leaving them in the ruins of their own making, you'll feel it. That weight lifting from your shoulders, that lightness in your step. It's the feeling of chains breaking, of freedom reclaimed. It's the feeling of stepping into your own power, unafraid, unstoppable. But let's not pretend they'll let you go easily. Manipulators hate losing their grip. They'll try to follow you, to pull you back into their orbit. But the beauty of freedom is this: it doesn't depend on them. Your worth, your strength, your peace, it comes from within. And once you realize that, once you truly believe it, they can't touch you. And oh, the look in their eyes when they realize it. That moment when they see you standing tall, unshaken, unbroken, it's a moment they'll never forget. Because in that moment, they see the truth. They see the monster they created, the monster they now fear. But this monster isn't cruel. This monster isn't vengeful. This monster is just free. Free to live, to love, to grow, without their shadow darkening every step. And as you walk away, you don't look back. Not because you're heartless, but because you're wise. You know that looking back only gives them power. So you keep moving forward, carrying with you the lessons they never intended to teach. You've become more than they ever imagined, stronger, wiser, unbreakable. And that terrifies them more than anything else. Because the greatest fear of a manipulator isn't losing control, it's facing the truth. And you, my friend, have become their truth. So let them rage. Let them sulk. Let them twist themselves into knots trying to figure out where they went wrong. It doesn't matter anymore. They don't matter anymore. Because you've won. Not with vengeance, not with anger, but with strength. Strength that comes from knowing who you are and knowing that no one, not them, not anyone, can take that away from you. And as the curtain falls on their act, as the spotlight fades and the audience leaves, they're left alone. Alone with their lies, their schemes, their empty victories. And you? You walk into the light, armed with a peace they'll never understand and a strength they'll never conquer. You were the puppet once, but now you're the master. And they'll spend the rest of their days haunted by the one thing they never saw coming: the silence.